well, in the time, it wasn't such a great topic, but we're going to be talking about the C word. Yeah, we're going to be talking about COVID. And stop.
We
Enough
can't
time
take
has passed.
can't take you anywhere.
Enough time has passed. It's
Not
time
even
to it.
we can't even take you back and to 2020. That's
I don't think any of us want to go back to that time, but we're going to talk about it, and we're going to talk about, enough time has passed, as G said, that we can kind of reopen that wound a little bit and, what's the word? Just
talk about our
just remember.
experiences. Our experience.
Yeah, talk about our experiences and our roles and, where we were in ABA during COVID and what that looked like.
Hashtag never forget.
Hashtag never forget is true.
All right.
And while we understand that that was such a hard time for so many people, that we want to make light of it, and hopefully no one gets offended by, because I'm sure this is going to turn into silly.
Yeah. Because
we're going to talk about like pros and cons of like what it was like absolutely going, in our roles, it was not easy by any means to switch over of everything, how we were doing everything, honestly. Some of the kids weren't getting all their hours. It wasn't great.
It was an abrupt change, like super abrupt, because I think
never thought that it would go down like that.
No, not at all.
I also think that we all have some good memories and some good stories and some good laughs of things that happened during telehealth. And, we'll kind of get into social group and how we all did that one. And that was interesting and funny. And I think, again, we all have, I was an RBT at that point, or still am, whatever. I never changed roles. But, as an RBT, that was like the weirdest time to be an RBT.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure being supervisors, it wasn't much better or easier.
Yeah. And do you want to get started and talk about what it was like for you in 2020 as a whole? What occurred for you?
Yeah, so in February 2020 is when I graduated with my master's. There was supposed to be an in-person graduation, I don't know, later in the year, and there were like 3 locations because I did all of mine online. So there were 3 different locations, and it was out of state. So I was trying to decide I would love to go. I didn't walk for my associates, I walked for my bachelor's, and I, thought that would be great. By the time that would have rolled around, my daughter would have been 3. So
oh my gosh.
I wanted to see, I know. So, and then I started studying. I was an RBT / assistant behavior analyst. So that looked like working in the intermediate unit, and then the world shut down. I think I just moved into the assistant role right before we shut down. So I got to meet all of my new clients face to face for a month, which is really once a week for most of the kids. And then shut down, never returned, never saw those kids face to face again. Yeah. And a lot of them opted out of telehealth because that was where we went. We did telehealth. Everyone had to figure out Zoom, or what was the Google one?
Google Meets.
Google Meet.
But also if they didn't have a parent that could help them, a lot of our kiddos couldn't do telehealth because they needed to have an adult or a parent sitting next to them. There was only a few kiddos that really could do it by themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and the intermediate unit was kids kindergarten age and younger. So between 3 and 5, and running an hour and a half, 2 hour long sessions. So that was interesting. Definitely learning curves with that. Like, how do you set up sessions? How do you, because as an assistant, you didn't really run the session. Like, I would see them in their classrooms and support the teachers. And that now I had to figure out my own materials. Like, how am I going to make this goal attainable through telehealth? So the telehealth side sucked, but the home, like, I was able to be at home more, like a lot more. I could see my clients back to back to back. And then I got to go play with my daughter. And
that was the positive.
Like, that summer was probably the best summer.
Well, and then, so I guess I'll piggyback off of that. So 2020 for me, I had graduated from my master's in May, but before that I was at RBT still, and I was working at a partial inpatient hospital. So I was working with to get my hours for internship because my master's is dual, so I needed to get that other part of my master's completed in order to graduate. It was a requirement. So I was working with adolescents in a outpatient setting. So it was groups. And when everything shut down, I was afraid I wasn't even going to be able to graduate because I was being told, oh, well, we can't really have you do telehealth. We're still trying to figure everything out. I wasn't sure if I was going to get the rest of my hours. I think I needed like 100 or something hours left. And that was easily obtainable within like a month and a half. And I was going to be early. So some people didn't do their internships over winter break. I decided to continue doing it over winter break because if I took that time off, I don't know what it would have happened. I know that they were extending for some people that had like maybe 50 hours or so after graduation, or like after your finals. And I was just like, I was devastated. I was freaking out. I was having these panics, like, because I was already down clients from being an RBT because I needed to do this part of my, master's degree. And then when we did shut down, it went down even further. So, I mean, I know that both of you can relate to the fact of getting hours cut and, not being able to
nodding our
survive.
heads.
Yeah, not being able to really survive off of that. So luckily, like my husband and I at the time, we were just dating and boyfriend, girlfriend, and we had a house. But luckily, like he had a stable job that he didn't have to seek. Like he doesn't have like clients. Like he works for a bank. So luckily, like he was able to still provide it when I was not able to. So I was very lucky in that aspect. But yeah, so I ended up getting all those hours, thankfully, and then I started studying in May. Like right after graduation, I was like, yep, I'm doing this. Also, I asked Anne to be, I think there's still text messages somewhere. There has to be saying, Anne, will you be my work wife? And I proposed to her.
And I said, I do.
And I'm shaking my head.
Should we become a throuple?
No, I don't consent.
Well, gee, fine. But yeah, so we started studying hardcore that summer, and granted, like Anne said, we were able to stack our sessions pretty well, because we were via telehealth. So everything had changed maybe like March, April. I think I was still seeing some clients in person in like March, and then April hit and it was like, well, what do we do? Like, how do we like navigate this? And then I also got engaged in June, which was fun. And
next to a trash can.
Not to me.
Not to Anne. So Anne and I got engaged first, and then my husband
got that.
Yeah, well, I think he knows that. You were my number one. And then, yeah, next to a trash can, I got engaged, and Angie and a couple other of our coworkers threw me an amazing COVID party, which was so much fun. And
outside, social distancing.
It was all social distancing.
Yes, we did all the things.
All the things. And
get yelled at.
then I took my exam and I passed in December, right before 2021 hit. That was my experience. What about you, Gigi?
I had a real weird COVID, honestly. COVID actually pushed me to leave the company we all worked for, which is like really weird looking back on. Um, I guess my funny story is the day before we were told we were not allowed to return in person. Was in the middle of a session, got a phone call from my neighbor that my dog had pushed the screen out of my bedroom window and was just hanging, not like hanging, I guess her head was sticking out of the window and she was just barking at everyone walking past. So I went back and forth of do I leave or do I finish this session? I probably had like an hour worth of the session left, and then I had a 30-minute drive home. And thankfully, that family that I was at, I had been working with them since day one. So they were very comfortable with me and we had a really good relationship. So I explained to the mom what was happening, and the mom was like, please go home and handle that. We'll see you tomorrow. I did not see them tomorrow. I saw them over a year later. They were my last family to go back in person after COVID had hit, due to many things. But yeah, so that's how my COVID experience started. I did everything from this office right here. I lost most of my clients. That family that I was just talking about, we upped his sessions. He's my only one that met hours during COVID. We did 2 telehealth sessions a day. We did mostly tacting. We went over the 300 common nouns to prepare him for kindergarten. And that's what we did for almost a year and a half. We ran maintenance sessions on Friday. I had PowerPoints down to a science. I had to make multiple PowerPoints because this kiddo was really smart and he started to memorize the order of my PowerPoint. So he wasn't even learning. Like, he was tacting everything.
I think I helped make some of those slides.
Probably.
I think I did part of indirect or unrestricted work.
Yeah. Probably.
Yeah. I mean, I just know it was a lot of PowerPoint making and sharing, and I guess the best part was that client was very rigid, as I think a lot of our clients are. And we had to sing a specific hello song and a specific goodbye song.
Which, by the way, I also had to sub for like a hot minute with that case. And my husband to this day still is like, oh, remember that time you had to sing that song? And I was like, yes, I do.
Yeah, we still also talk about it pretty often over here. But it was to the point where my dog learned the goodbye song, and when I started singing it to the client, she would come up the stairs because she knew like I was about to be done with my session.
Wow.
And she'd be like, okay, cool, like now mom gets to hang out with me, like we're done. So that was pretty cool. And I also had a client that in person I only saw him once a week, and we were really just like, he was about to graduate, like we weren't working on much at that point. So we played games, like I shared my screen and we just like literally played Disney games for an hour, which is amazing. I got paid to just play games via Zoom for a hot second. But then I also, like, one of my kiddos that I went to school with for 20 hours a week, like I lost him completely, which really sucked. And as Erica was saying, like I took a really big hit in hours. I was doing my best, and I tried my best to make ends meet, but it did get to the point where things were opening back up and hours were still not getting met. Because I don't know if you guys remember, we had to fill out like a questionnaire every morning, and then like if you were exposed or if any of your clients were exposed, they all had a quarantine or this, that, and the other thing. And it ended up like you were still only working like 10 to 15 hours a week, and it just wasn't, you weren't able to make ends meet with that. So.
Well, going back to what you were just saying about the PowerPoints and stuff, I just sent you guys a couple GIFs that I had made for actually Kathy's daughter. I actively made GIFs for these PowerPoints, and I'll share them on here.
Oh my God. What?
I forgot you did that.
Because I was trying to get her engaged and trying to be like interactive because we're on Zoom doing these sessions. So
I think we need to share these on Instagram.
there's more of them. Those are
We could edit them into the YouTube video. So anyone watching us on YouTube, hopefully, like insert here.
But like as I'm also was looking for those gifts and crying, as I was looking for those gifts, I saw like all the thermometer pictures that I took because it was all in like my Google Photos.
Oh yeah.
So like the thermometer photos, because you had to take a picture.
Annoying.
So frustrating, but understandable. Like you had to do it in order to prove that you could go to work. And are you okay?
I'm good.
And I don't know if you guys experience this because I guess because you guys were kind of RBTs. When we started to go back in person, I had to have a different bag for every client that I went into. So my trunk became literally just bags. And then there was certain things that I had to make sure I transitioned. Like I had like a clipboard on my iPad that had like I didn't have 3 iPads to bring with me or whatever. So like those couple things had to get switched around, but like I had clients that were all the same age for the most part, but like I couldn't use the same materials across clients because we still weren't sure what was going on. Wearing a mask way after we had gone back. Thank God that is done. I can breathe again. And then everyone getting sick once the masks came off. I don't know if you guys
and also yeah, and you got to figure that one out. But no, and like I remember my acne was terrible during that time because of the masks. So like my chin,
wear makeup. I have like makeup stains on the inside of my masks.
That's wild.
Yeah. Because everyone, I don't know about you guys. I just had eye makeup on. There was no other makeup on my face.
Just from like here, like right under your cheek, like above your cheekbone up, and should have just put foundation or whatever on there and like boop.
Listen, I have a routine. I'm very rigid. That wouldn't feel like the whole day I would feel off if I did that.
But yeah, no, it's crazy to think back to like all of the materials we had to make for telehealth, like immediately. I created all these like PowerPoints and like instructional things for my clients because as an RBT, we were trying our best to help RBCBAs as much as possible to gather any single way to create a positive session. Like I did virtual tea parties. I think I had talked about that when Kathy was on. Yeah. Like I did virtual tea parties. I did anything that I could do for some play.
We really, I get, as RBTs, I feel like we were pulling every string to keep these kiddos engaged. I remember finding every YouTube video, every song, every like movement break that we could do virtually. I probably spent 10 hours a week actually getting paid on telehealth, like to do sessions, and another 10 just making materials and like researching things. And at that point, I wasn't going to school for my master's. So looking back was very frustrating that I spent hours upon hours, like actually working on these PowerPoints and didn't get paid for it. I didn't collect hours for it. Like I did it purely to help out my clients. And like, I'm glad that I did because like they benefited from it, but it sucks. It sucked.
my Kindle stuff. So like I started actually reading books. For anyone that knows me, I don't read and I started reading recently, but on my Kindle, I scroll and it's like recommended books for you. And it's all Pete the Cat because I did virtual books. That was like the only way to kind of do any sort of reading unless like you pulled up a YouTube video.
I do remember that. I just got a bunch of physical books like from like neighbors and stuff. And I would just like sit here and read.
I would do that too. If I knew I had a book of like a certain character that a client liked, I would find a physical copy that I had, or I would look on, it was like Vook, V-O.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Because those were free. I don't know now, and YouTube, yeah, like you can YouTube any book narration. And teachers paid teachers, like that's where I like discovered that. And there was like there were like other ones. And like when I was an assistant, you know, there was no RBT. The parents kind of became my RBT. And that was like, talk about parent training, and like these parents who usually I'd never met before because I was in
That was probably the best
preschools
parent training that anyone ever got.
Like they had to be involved. They had to block. They had to like, okay, we have to sit here and like, and I would say, okay, now can you give them options between like blocks and puzzles and see which one they want to do? And okay, now they're not picking, so like redirect them and like prompting them to prompt their child. Like that was hard. And then connection issues. I remember like various snow/rain storms and like, you know, losing power and, you know, the unreliability of that, and that affecting sessions. Like, then what do you do? And I would do sessions over FaceTime with a client because they couldn't, their second language was English. And I don't know, for some reason, like the Zoom never, like, we could never get it to work. So I just FaceTimed, and then the kid would literally just walk around with the phone around the house, and we would play hide and seek. And the dad would then hold the phone and like bring me around to find him.
Wait, I just remembered I did a whole session on my phone, which never happened. I did it once. I literally just remembered this. This is a fun one. 5 to 10 minutes before I needed to be on with my kiddo that I would sing to. And it was a very in-depth session. Mom had access to all of the PowerPoints, and sometimes she would just like pull them up on her screen. And as Anne just said, like I would just kind of prompt mom through it and she would run the session. But 5 to 10 minutes before a session one day, I was outside and there was a dog that didn't have an owner around, didn't have a leash. And anybody who knows me, like I can't just let that dog go. I now have to go find this dog's owner, call the police, get this whole thing. But when I approached the dog took off running. So now I was running around. I literally had to grab my dog's leash and like treats, and I'm running around my neighborhood, sweating, trying to get this dog to like come. I'm on the phone with animal control, like somebody like come help me. So that's what I'm doing. And then I realized what time it is and I have to be on a telehealth session. I kid you not, I joined this telehealth session while I was still dealing with that whole situation and told the mom what was going on. And she was like, no, please go handle it. I'll start running the session. And I remember being on my AirPod, talking to the mom through the session while I'm chasing this little freaking white floofy dog around. Animal control like never shows up. I finally capture this dog. I like looped it in this like cul-de-sac. It was not an aggressive, it was a very tiny like little dog. He just thought we were playing for a half hour, and finally looped this dog, and the owner comes out of the house and was like, that's my dog. And I couldn't say any words. I was like, I just need to go home. This is ridiculous. And I remember finishing up, that was like session 1 of the day with him. And I remember finishing up again during all of this, talking mom through. And during that whole process, I had lost my keys to my car. We don't have house keys. I have a little keypad thing, so like that didn't matter. But I couldn't drive anywhere. I had no access to the car. We had one car at that point. And I then, during the second session, had to go searching for my car keys while on session. So that day, I literally spent carrying my phone around outside doing telehealth, running around I did find my keys. Shout out to Facebook groups for your towns. Somebody had posted that they found my keys and I went and got them. They were 3 blocks over, but I got them. And that totally happened during telehealth. And I just remembered that now.
That's really funny.
That was a interesting day.
Wild.
Yeah. So I think we were all 3 doing social skills virtually at the time as RBTs, right? Yes.
I was
I don't think I was unless I blacked out. I remember when I passed my exam having the social skills BCBA interview and then getting that, and I was excited about that, but I don't
know if you were a tech.
Maybe I did it a couple times. Oh yeah, I did, because I remember doing the self and match stuff. The self-monitoring goals.
I'm pretty sure I was also, when I was a tech, and then I also remember becoming social skills BCBA and interviewing for that. And I also, so our lovely one BCBA friend was like, you should really, and she was actually my supervisor at the time when I became a BCBA. She goes, you've done social skills. We need to bring these groups back. They need help. Like, can you start running any of these groups? And I was like, I don't know. Let me think about it. Looking back, it was probably one of the most stressful things in the entire universe. Picture this. We're on Zoom. Okay. On Zoom, there's 4 technicians. So there's 4 adults plus a BCBA. So that's 5 adults and 4 kids. All just trying to
preteens. I mean, that's the one I remember. Like the preteen group was.
So there was the preteens group, and then there was so it was the tweens group. That's what it was. And then it was the younger groups where I had to run, like, I think there were 7 or 8-year-olds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I only subbed for the younger one. I only did the tween social group.
Yeah, so with our other friend that we're gonna have on in the future. But yeah, I look back at it now and I'm like, it was a good experience, but I couldn't do that forever. And we were the only reasons why it was still going.
Yeah, well, can you talk about like what it looked like pre-COVID and then like what it looked like post-COVID? Because like that was also part of the problem, is it looked so different pre-COVID to, I guess, like during COVID, and then post-COVID, even it all really changed. If you want to touch on that a little bit.
Pre-COVID was probably my most favorite thing.
Yeah.
Saturdays were fun. Saturdays were so fun.
I looked forward to that. I liked like the groups were fun, and you know, and they were funny. And not only that, but that was like the only time where RBTs could see each other and see like them modeling goals, and then you're like, oh wow, like that's how you do that. So like that helped me. And like I talked to this with another RBT that we all know, who did social skills with us, and you know, like we were always like, I wish every RBT had this experience to see like in real time how to block behaviors, how to give reinforcement. Like I loved that.
It also really generalized our skills, I felt like, because a lot of the times we switched, not every time, but we switched like kiddos within the same group. So like you got to learn their goals and like their different things. Like I had a conflict of interest, so there was only one kiddo that I couldn't work with.
So I worked with the kiddo that G had a conflict of interest with.
Just because I homeschooled, again, he's the one who'll be on in a couple weeks, but I homeschooled him before I became a tech in the company, so I couldn't. But anyway, other than that, like we all rotated, which was again amazing for generalization for their skills. And as Anne just said, like we could bounce ideas off of each other of like, oh, like I haven't had this kiddo yet, but you have, like, how do you do this? How do you do that? And with all of our sessions were home-based or school-based, and like we didn't have that clinic-based setting other than social group. And so it was really nice to just have other RBTs that it was like, oh yeah, this is how you do that. Oh, this all makes sense.
I mean, thank you, social skills at our last company, or else like the 3 of us probably would never have become friends. I mean, G and I knew each other from sharing a client briefly, but Anne, we would never have met you if there was no social skills. So shout out to social skills and, you know, the amazing everything that comes from that group setting. But yeah, no, I worked with various ages when I did the social skills in person. So I worked with I think the youngest was like
youngest was 4? Like 3, 4.
No, they were 3.
3, 4s, yeah.
Because little some babies. Of them were mine, like some of them were mine.
Yep.
and then they also had social skills.
Yep.
Yeah. And then
Yeah,
the
and then like
group,
those looked like.
So that group, so the little group got completely gone.
Yeah, that was
They
impossible to do telehealth.
Yeah, so
impossible.
pre-COVID, they had this social group that they were able to interact with peers. We were working really hard on it. Then COVID hit and they never had social group again.
Yep.
It was gone. And then we had the younger.
So it was like the 5s and 6s. So it was 3 4s, 5 6, 7 8, 9 10. 10.
I don't know.
I don't know how it
was
was grouped exactly. Well, and there were a couple of the same ages split up to make them smaller groups and to group them together based on like their likes and like their skill sets.
Yeah. So there were multiple groups occurring. So like Anne just said, like there were 2 different groups of similar ages happening, you know, at different times. And we worked with them just trying to create those social opportunities in person, right? When we were in person. But then when we went telehealth, it became a lot more difficult because parents had to be nearby. If they were not nearby, we were not able to have them participate because 90% of the time the kid was not going to sit there and participate. So I'm thinking back to my like, I guess I'm just thinking more of when I was the BCBA for the social group because I had a 7-8-year-old group. I think it was like 7 to 9 actually. And we would be trying to have sessions and client wouldn't be even sitting still or wouldn't be sitting with the group. And, you know, it's also really hard to put these kids in front of a screen for them to participate in social skills and trying to get that engagement and prompting, like, how do you prompt, right? Like the technicians would be messaging, like, how am I supposed to prompt this?
And again, it was hard because all of the technicians were in there. So like, it's not like you were sitting next to your next to your kiddo. So like the technicians are like trying to prompt Joe Schmo over there, and Joe Schmo's not listening to the technician or the BCBA. So what was the point?
I can count on both hands how many times I was pulled into breakout rooms when I was an RBT to talk with the client. Hey, bud.
Yeah.
All of a sudden you would just disappear.
Yeah,
you would just disappear.
Where'd everyone go? Like, don't worry about it.
Everyone would just be in a breakout room somewhere, like telling their kiddo to focus. Am I mistaking that there was a group that a parent was like overtaking the group?
Yeah,
I think so. Was it my group or your group, Anne?
It was. Oh
I
gosh.
only
I would have to
joined
look at the names, but
once. I know like that was a weird issue that we didn't expect to happen either, is like the parent was participating more than the client was, and it was like, no, you're supposed to be sitting there to help your kiddo out.
And I can't remember which
group
that
you'll
was.
know. Hold on.
I will probably
just discuss afterwards. But
anywho's, yes.
Check your messages.
I do think, long story short,
yes,
kind of start to wrap this up. Telehealth had its pros, its cons, it's in the middle. I think, again, as we started this, like being able to look back on this 4 years later, it's comical. You know, we can kind of laugh about it. I don't know about you guys, but like I've touched base with some of my kiddos, and like all of our telehealth kiddos are fine. They've either graduated or they're soaring in ABA now. Like they're doing fine. We were able to kind of get back on track, but that year, at least from March of 2020 to March 2021, was rough. We all had to really
pivot,
change things around. I think we all learned all of the tricks of Zoom, Google Doc, Google Meets, as Anne was saying, all of like the free sites that you could find to.
I became a master at making GIFs. So if anyone ever needs any suggestions, I got you.
So good to insert them somewhere in this. I don't know if we're going to insert them at the end or in the middle. So like anybody just listening, please hop over to YouTube. We are definitely going to put them somewhere in here.
Like I just started doing burpees to try and like get some sort of reaction, like of excitement. I brought my dog into it and was like dancing. You'll see it. It's great.
But yeah, I think think let's just wrap this one up for today, but just stay tuned for the next couple weeks. We have a lot of fun guests coming on. We have a graduated student client, whatever he is. I guess he's a client. A client. He was a student for me. Okay. A client who has graduated. We're going to talk to him. We're going to talk to his mom. We are hoping to have Kathy back on to talk about some things. We're just clarifying dates with her. We're also going to have supervisor from Erica's work on to talk about some parent training things. So definitely a lot of, an ABA student she's going through her master's right now, right?
My cousin.
Yeah.
My cousin is getting her master's and just wants to talk about some stuff, which will be fun.
Yeah, and I think specifically like balancing school and still being an RBT. So yeah, lots of fun things to come up. So definitely continue to listen and follow us. If you would like to be on, please email us at aba.generalized.podcast@gmail.com. We're also on Instagram at ABA Generalized the pod. You can also send us a direct message. We all have access to that account. So one of us will answer you, whoever decides to be on the account that day. If you're watching us on YouTube or ABA Generalized, and then just remember to rate, review, and subscribe.
Thanks for listening or watching or whatever you're doing to see and listen, or both. Or yeah.
Goodbye.
Bye. ABA Generalized, the podcast, is not providing professional advice. Please seek a professional in your area for specific advice and support.